Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast. I'm Ann Alvarez, parent coach, school counselor, and mother of two. Do you sometimes struggle with your parenting role? Do you notice that sometimes you're repeating patterns that you learned in your own childhood? Maybe you are carrying childhood pain that has not been healed, and you notice that it is showing up in your parenting with your own children. Perhaps you yell or get frustrated easily. Maybe you are directing them or telling them what to do all the time, and you notice that your actions are affecting your relationship with your children. Well, parents, I totally understand this. I came from childhood pain and I learned how to be a relational parent with my children. And I can teach this to you as well. This podcast is all about learning how to heal the childhood pain that we are carrying so that we can foster healthy relationships with our kids. Join us every week for a new show, and we will dive into the healing and the fostering of healthy relationships with our children. Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting podcast and YouTube channel. I'm super excited today because I have a special guest. Her name is Jen Dreyer. She is a parent coach and educational consultant who supports families and teachers of neurodivergent children and teens. Jen has more than 25 years of experience working with children, families, and teachers in both New York City and DC as a public school teacher, a school staff developer, and parent coach. Her youngest son is autistic and has ADHD and OCD, and her oldest son has ADHD as well. So she's going to be able to give us a lot of insight. Welcome, Jen.
Oh, thanks for having me on. So happy to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. Okay, so why don't you tell us what brought you to your work as a parent coach?
Sure. So I have a background in education and came to DC and was working part-time in this work in education, supporting teachers. And when my younger son was born, sort of a year in, as I was doing some of this part-time work, we realized he was behind in lots of things. And so we ended up figuring out very early, because we had support from family members who work in early education space, to give me lots of insights into what to do and how to get support. And we figured out that he was, quite behind. And she said, you can get free support for all this stuff. And she walked me through the whole thing. And when we got him tested, he was very behind, and in speech and cognitive and social emotional stuff. And so he was like the poster child for early intervention. So he ended up getting speech and OT and developmental therapy. And he went from like 50% behind in speech at a year and a half to at 2.5, 1 year later, 10% behind in speech, which was like in the normal range of 10% behind. So it made just a tremendous difference for him. And so I started to like, how can I tell more people about early intervention? More people need to know about this because this is so powerful. And so I started kind of trying to figure out ways. I was going to moms groups and I was talking to people and trying to get the word out. And fast forward to we ended up getting him a diagnosis with, he has autism, as you said, he's autistic and ADHD. And so those came early. And so I've been in the space of supporting him, since he was young, and getting him like lots of therapies and navigating all of these things. And I was trying to figure out how to help more parents, and then came across a mutual friend who's also a parent coach, put me in touch with Gabrielle Nicolay, who's my partner in Raising Orchid Kids. And she is a speech therapist and also parent coach. And so we just really hit it off and came together to create this program to support parents. And it's nice because she brings that clinical expertise and I can bring the lived experience. And so it's a really nice balance. And we started it's funny, we started March 1st, literally March 1st, 2020. We were like, oh, we're going to have in-person classes. And then very quickly, we're like, oh, it's COVID. And now we're pivoting to online. And it worked out really well because we've been able to work with families, like really, we've had people in different countries. Like we had someone from the UK, people in Ghana, people in Bali have come to our
Wow.
classes. So that's been really great to be able to offer it to more people and expand who we can support. And then, so we do online classes for parents and kind of really practical strategies. My whole goal is to really help parents like get to tomorrow understanding some new things about what to do, and to like, really get what's happening with their kids and kind of understand the behavioral pieces a little bit better, and to move from a place a little bit more of compassion for their children and figure out like, oh, my kid's not just like trying to make me crazy. My kid is having a hard
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
And then we've expanded. We now do support groups for parents of neurodivergent teens, which has been wonderful. And we do workshops, and I'm really glad to see more and more people kind of entering the spaces as coaches, because it's very needed. It's totally overwhelming for parents to be in this space, because so much of what's out there is really, there are some books and it's increasing, but most of the books out there, most of the classes, most of the stuff is really for parents of neurotypical kids, or like, neurotypical light or neurodivergent light, like very
Yes.
slightly different, but there's not a lot for parents who are really struggling with what to do and
Yes.
feel overwhelmed, and that all these other typical parenting things are just not working. So
Yes. Yes. Wow. It's so good that you got an early diagnosis, because that really helped you to get some tools, right? With
yeah,
your
oh no,
parenting.
it made a huge difference. It made a really
Yes.
huge difference for him.
Wow. Okay, so when you're working with parents, like, how do you help them with their neurodivergent teens? Let's just go with the
Mhm.
teenagers for now.
Sure. Yeah. So the teens group that we have, for example, we will, talk about what are the issues you're seeing, right? What's coming up for you. And then we will talk through, try to explain to parents kind of what's going on, like neurobiologically for their
Mm.
kids, what's going on in their kids' brains, what's happening in their bodies, like what are, and I think, there's this big rush to go like hormones, 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 but it's not, it's not just hormones. Like there's many other things happening. The brain is developing in the teenage years at a rate comparable to like birth to five. Like that's the biggest, it's like a humongous jump in
Yeah.
cognitive shifts and all that stuff. And so trying to help them understand kind of what's happening for my child cognitively, like in their brain. And
Mhm.
then what are some of the things that are happening, what's a teenage thing and what's a neurodivergence thing, and like how do we tease that out? And sometimes it's really hard and it's tricky, and sometimes they mesh, and it creates sort of sometimes a perfect storm of challenges. And so helping them, one, understand what might be going on, understand that when their child is pushing back on things, there's a drive to be independent, and that is what teenagers' jobs are. Like that is what their brain is doing, and they're supposed to be doing that, and that's hard
Yeah.
as a parent.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think there's also, as a parent in general, you want to fix, right? You want to just like fix all the problems. And it's tricky when you have a neurodivergent kid, because sometimes you do have to do the fixing, and sometimes you have to step back. And so you have to figure out, where's the space? How do I thread that needle, right? Of giving them the space to be independent and to find their own solutions, and to support them, to be able to find their own solutions. And, where's my role here? What do I need to do to help them learn how to be able to take on this stuff independently down the road or soon?
Yes.
And so I think, giving parents the space to question that and to look at it and to understand where am I coming from, right? What am I bringing to this, right?
Yes.
What's happening for me? What's triggering me
Mhm.
as my child is being triggered by certain
Mhm.
things? And sometimes if we can step back and take a look at what's going on for ourselves internally when our kids are doing certain things, we often have that thought like, well, like I didn't get away with that, or like I wasn't allowed to do that. And so we're sometimes, so Gabrielle, my partner, often says that, sometimes when we're kind of grappling with challenging behaviors with our kids or teens, that there's like three people in the room. There's like me as the parent, there's like my kid, and then there's like me as the child at that age, right?
Mhm.
And that you're also navigating all of that stuff too. And so just heightening awareness is really important, right? So that you can step back and say, okay, how do I want to respond rather than just react? Um,
Yes.
and
Slow things
so
down. Another
Yeah.
parent coach said, slow it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Have do whatever you need to do. And the one thing that we tell parents, like your 100% best thing to be doing is to like keep yourself calm and do whatever you need to do to keep yourself calm, which like these days is really challenging. Like
Yeah,
I'm in the US and it is like, like
yeah,
it's hairy here. I mean, right
yes,
now there's a
yeah.
lot to
Hmm.
manage.
Hmm.
And just like it just feels like an onslaught, like, so we're just like
Yeah,
trying to just
yeah,
stay stable and sturdy is hard.
right.
And so whatever you can do to do that, to like take care of yourself and find those things that, the pieces of things I need to do to keep my own nervous system
Yeah,
in check and regulated is really
yeah,
important. And to understand that when our kids are freaking out about things or are having a hard time with things, um, their nervous systems, it's like a sign of nervous system being out of whack. Um,
hmm,
Especially with neurodivergent kids whose nervous systems tend to be very sensitive, much more
yes,
sensitive than a neurotypical kids. Um, so kind of helping them find the things that can soothe them is like one of the things that we work with parents on too. Is like figuring out, because so there's this author I really love who wrote a book. His name is Stuart Shanker. He's Canadian actually,
huh?
from I think from Toronto. He wrote a book called Self Reg, and it's very he's a neurologist and it's a little bit sciencey, but he's got an autistic child who's now I think probably a young adult at this point, but he talks about that our kids' challenging behaviors are just stress responses. And I think this is like for kids across the board, that it's not just neurodivergent kids, like probably adults too, right? Like when we do things, when we
Yes.
yell about things, or we freak out about things, like it's a stress response, right? To something in the environment or something that's occurred or some internal sensation, right? And the thing that counteracts what he explained, the thing that counteracts stress responses is release of the hormone oxytocin. And if you remember when your kids were babies, that was like the skin to skin, like, that was oxytocin producing. And oxytocin is just like a feel good hormone. It just helps to reduce stress. It makes your body feel warm and fuzzy, like whatever it is that does that for you. Like for me, for many people, touch is a way to do that. But for some neurodivergent kids, touch is actually stress, like causes
Yeah,
stress, right?
triggering.
Right, it's
Hmm.
triggering if
Hmm.
they are, sensory averse kiddos and so
Yes.
and teens. And so knowing your child and knowing what supports them and what triggers them is really the key. But like my dog, I started noticing what happens when I'm just petting my dog. When I have a really
Yes.
chill, calm dog, all of a sudden I start to feel like I feel
Yeah.
my whole body start to relax. If you can start to pay attention to those things, then you start to notice, oh, here are the things that help kind of bring out the oxytocin, bring out the feeling of being soothed, um,
Yes.
to help counteract those stress responses.
Yeah, because we're always bringing an energy to our homes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
whatever energy we're bringing into our homes, it actually affects our kids. So
100%.
yeah, we have to monitor. I always say, we have to parent from the inside out, you know,
Yes. Yes.
because whatever we're showing up with at home, it does affect our children in a positive or negative way, right?
Yeah.
And love that this behavior is a stress response. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
then we don't have to personalize because
Yeah.
sometimes parents personalize, like, oh, my kid's having a tantrum or he's being disrespectful. That's one of the things
Mm-hmm.
parents say.
Mm-hmm.
He's being disrespectful. And so we don't have to personalize behavior because if it's a stress response, then you as a parent know my child is under stress.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna be calm. I'm gonna like monitor my own stress level, and then I'm gonna help my child to regulate, to calm down, right? And then, like you said, you have to know your child because every child's different. So you
Yes.
got to understand what calms my child. Does, rubbing his back calm him? Does sitting close to him calm him? Does
Mm-hmm.
talking to him softly calm him or her? Like, if you know what works, that's what you do, right? And if you
Yeah.
don't know, then try different things to
And
find out what.
ask them, right? And then have them kind of try it out and see, right?
Yeah,
So for some kids, like my older son, my 15-year-old, he really needs to go by himself. Like he needs like a space away from things. He needs quiet. He needs like separation is what helps him calm. Sometimes music is a really amazing, can be a great oxytocin producer for some
Yes.
kids, right? So some
Yeah.
kind of could be calming music, could be something like that. So those are things for him that like really help him. And so I've been trying to increasingly, every time he's like, I just need to be by myself. I'm like, awesome. That's a great choice. Like for you, that works really well for you, for your brain. Um,
Yeah.
and the
And
other
that he
thing,
knows that and can verbalize it,
yes,
right?
yes.
That's incredible, you know?
And one of the things that I really like that you were talking about is this idea of depersonalizing, because one of the tools we do to help kids feel less like I'm, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing, I can't do this or that, is to use
Mhm.
what we call your brain language. And so we talk a lot about your brain. Like your brain has a hard time, you know, when it's loud, right? With like lots of loud noise, your brain feels totally overwhelmed when that happens. And we talk about it in terms of like my brain actually like really likes loud sounds, or like likes loud music, or
Yeah.
something like that, right? My
Yeah.
brain loves talking to people. It gives my brain like lots of energy, gives my body energy. Like I'm a classic extrovert, but
Yes.
my my younger son, my autistic son, is actually a classic extrovert too. Um,
Yes.
but my older son is not. Like he's a little bit more
Mhm.
introverted. He's a little bit more like his dad. Like he's and
Yeah.
so helping him understand that like sometimes being around a lot of people feels tiring for you, and sometimes you
Yeah.
feel a little bit more energized when you're doing stuff on your own, and that's just good to know about your brain. And it's
Yes.
not, nothing's better or worse, it's just information, right? It's just
Yes.
difference.
Yes.
um, and so I think helping kids understand, helping teens especially understand kind of and accept that like we don't know, especially, and it's so hard when we're seeing all these videos of things of how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to be, and I think this is,
Yes.
and I'm going to just go out on a limb here, I think is a little bit typically more for girls than for boys. This is a bigger stressor.
Mhm.
Although boys today, like they all have the same haircut. My hair,
Yes.
my son has a like big
Mhm.
gigantic hair.
Yes.
We call it the broccoli, but because he sort of looks like a broccoli head. Um,
Yes. Yes.
uh,
Yes.
but that there's this stress to kind of be like other people and to sort of do the same thing and to conform. And that, if we can figure out the ways to help them see that differences are not bad, differences are what makes the world go round. I mean, it'd be so boring if everyone were actually the same.
Yes. 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 It's so true. And the teenage years are so hard because of
Mhm.
what's going on, like with the brain development, with the
Yes.
hormones,
Yeah.
with the growth, and then just this wanting to break free from us, but
Hmm.
still they kind of need us, right? Like
Yes.
that's the balance is we want to give them freedom to grow up, but they also still need our guidance and our support and our love, right?
Hmm.
It's such a tender stage of their development, you know?
It is. And I think sometimes you're never sure, like, who's going to show up today when they come down for
Ew.
breakfast, right? Is it going to
Yeah.
be like my sweet, happy teen, or is it like my super moody, cranky teen because he's, he or she's really tired and didn't sleep enough, and so, and I think whoever shows up, we're like, okay, I
Yes.
see what's happening. You do not have the
Yes.
skills yet to like navigate when I'm feeling cranky, to like not be rude to everyone else or not be like a little bit unkind, right? They don't
Yeah.
have the skill set yet, right? Their prefrontal
Yeah.
cortex is not developed yet, right? And
Exactly. I think up to age 25. I think
25,
that's
and
what I heard.
that's 25 is for neurotypical kids. So if you have a
Yes.
divergent child, they typically develop later. So up to a third later, up to a full third
Did you
later,
hear
they
that,
develop brain.
parents?
Yeah. So if you have a kid with
Give them
ADHD who's like,
time.
yeah, it's just struggling, that is why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing so if I love this, so Dan Siegel, who's another author who's written a bunch of books on parenting, he has this brain hand model, right? And so this is like the prefrontal cortex, this part in the front, which is right behind your forehead, and this is where executive functioning lives.
Mhm.
And that's our like ability to not only get from point A to point B to point C and to like finish all our tasks, but it's also to do that like calmly. Like it's
Yes.
self-regulation lives there. That's our
Mhm.
thinking brain.
Mhm.
And that's the part that's not fully, going to be fully developed till age 25,
Right.
right? So what happens is sometimes our emotions get the best of us, right? Something happens and
Yes.
lids flip, right? And so when our lids flip, when you're in this lower part of your downstairs brain, and that's your
Yeah.
amygdala, and that's the part that's like
Yes.
fight, flight, freeze,
Yeah.
freak out, whatever.
Emotional.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
space where I'm less in control.
Yes.
And the other thing that happens, which is good for parents to know, is that like when kids are in that space,
Yeah.
they can't hear you. They like cannot hear you.
No.
So, and what happens also is there's this thing called mirror neurons where your brain goes here too as soon as your kid's
Yes.
flipping out. And so now we're just like
Yes.
yelling at each other and
Yes.
everyone's freaking out. And that's just like nothing good's happening here. Right?
No, no, there's no logic happening.
No.
When we're in that part of the brain, that is not the logic center. That is the like you
Mhm.
said, the flight, flee,
Mhm.
fight response. And so we cannot problem solve even ourselves. We can't think
Mm-mm.
logically. So we have to calm that brain down first,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And just move through it. Move through the emotions that you're feeling,
Yeah.
right? Because I do think it's better than suppressing. Suppressing's not good for you, but move
Definitely.
through those feelings. And then when everybody's calm, then we can talk. Let's talk about it. You know, what
Mhm.
what made you so angry? Why are you so angry? Right?
Mhm.
Um, what do you think we could do next time?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, and I
that's
like to be in that, like, what do we do next time? Like in the problem solving mode is good
yeah,
because instead of sometimes like rehashing, why
yes.
didn't you X or Y or Z, like that's going to make people feel bad. And, people don't, shame is not motivating for people.
Mhm.
And so I think if we can find like, okay, that was hard for you in that situation. Like, let's talk about what was getting in the way. What do you think you could do? What would help in that situation again? Because
Yes.
that may happen again or whatever that situation is. Um, can
I
and
just
wait
want
for
to reiterate for parents with teens that when they overreact, when they're moody, sometimes they can't help it. Like this is what's happening with them. And
mm-hmm,
so we cannot personalize it. We can't say, oh, they're being disrespectful. Oh, they're rude. Oh, they hate me. Right? Like we cannot do that. We have to understand this is the stage of development that they're
mm-hmm,
in, and they are overreactive and over emotional, but they
mm-hmm.
will move through it as
Yes.
they learn how to deal with their emotions. Sometimes they don't know why they're moody or upset.
Most of the time, I would say most of the time they're like that. They don't even know why they're acting that way. I mean,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
I I
like,
understand it. I have a
yeah,
teenager. He
yeah.
there's days when he's just complaining
Mm-hmm,
nonstop, and then other days where he's just so happy. And I'm like, oh,
mm-hmm,
and I
mm-hmm.
take whatever comes. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
he needs me to listen because he wants to complain. He needs to vent. Okay, let's vent.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it, right? And then when he's happy, I'm like, oh, I'm so good. Like
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're excited about those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't personalize it because it's not about you. It's
No,
the
it is. Right.
they're
That
going.
is so very true. It's not about you. Yeah. And that's hard, right? Because that's not how our brains are trained, really, right? We've got a negativity bias and we're like
Yeah.
trained to see these bad
What,
things
why?
happening.
Why me?
Yeah. And
Why are
so
they
here's
treating their mother like that?
right. And I think there's a couple mantras that I come back to all the time. And one of them is, my child is not giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time. And so
Yes.
just that little shift, like all of a sudden you're like, okay, this isn't about me. This is about my kid is struggling right now. Right. And
Mm,
that's why he or she is acting this way. Right. This is why they're acting in this way. And this
yeah.
is why they're, you know, things are going on that I may or may not have any control over. And
Yeah.
they're struggling to manage their big feelings. And so what I
Yes.
could help with is like be there for them, help them find the things that will soothe them, and um, yeah, and know that this is a learning process. Their brain is growing. It's that it's that Ross Green quote that doctor, like that explosive child, that kids do well when they can, and when they're not doing well, and this very much for teens as well, when they're not doing well, it's because they're lacking the skills or the supports to do better. And so if we
Yeah.
can think about it from that way, then we can shift kind of more into problem solving mode. What does my child need here to do better and to feel better in
Yes.
this
What
moment?
does my child need right now? That's one of my favorite questions.
Mm-hmm.
What does my child need right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why many parents struggle, like many parents will say to me, "Well, I wasn't like that when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is my kid like this?" Right? And I just want to say, parents, like I was the obedient kid,
Mm-hmm.
but it's because I didn't feel safe with my parents. It's because I knew my parents would get mad or punish me or yell at me, and I didn't want that. And so then I suppressed my feelings and learned that I don't have a voice. I wasn't comfortable expressing my voice. And it's actually not healthy to
No.
be raised that way because then growing up, when became a young woman, I tell this story a lot. I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't feel like I could verbalize my opinions because it wasn't safe to do that with my parents. So we have to, if we want a healthy home, we have to allow our children to voice whatever they're saying in any way they want to so that they can get it out of them and it's not being suppressed, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be healthy for them.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I think if we want to teach our kids to be able to advocate for what they need, that's really important to be able to develop, understanding of their own brain, of understanding of like what gets in the way for them, what feels hard for them, what triggers them, and then also what helps them feel better, what soothes them, what are the things that, there's lots of metaphors around it, like charge your battery or, like
Yeah,
versus drain your battery or like fill your bucket or empty your bucket or, and so a lot of the things our kids are doing, and a lot of times, when kids come home from school after this long day of school, school is a lot for kids.
a lot.
It is very draining on the battery.
Mhm.
And so if they're like, it's just like, the second grader who comes home and is like fine at school all day and then comes home and is like, completely
Yes.
loses it
Mhm.
versus the teen who's just kind of sullen and moody and like runs into their room or something like that, that they need a little bit of space to recover and recharge.
Yes.
And so helping them, like, one, notice that, like, hey, this is really normal that happens. Like, let's make sure that you're doing stuff that's actually recharging versus like, you know, not always just like hanging out on your screen or like, scrolling things. That's not always really recharging in a meaningful way. So
Yes.
find the things that feel actually recharging,
Yes.
is important.
Yeah. So good. So good. Okay. Can you give a couple tips for parents who are helping their teenagers that may be neurodivergent?
Yeah,
How to,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think some of it is figuring out, um, sometimes I say this thing like, who owns the problem, right? Because this is a thing that parents, like, we want to jump in and fix and fix and fix, um,
Mhm.
all the stuff, but sometimes, that's not always helpful. So we want to figure out, like, what is the just right challenge for my
Yes.
child in this moment. And so where do I need to, as I was saying before, like that threading of the needle is really hard. Um, and you can have your child, you can do this together as a team. Like, what are the things that your child thinks would be helpful for them? And then you can have this conversation around it. And then you're kind of on the side teaching them to start to advocate for themselves and figure out what they need, and to be able to ask for, here's what I need to do better in this situation. Um, so one, I think that is really important, is to think about, like, how can you involve your child in this process of, um, you know, figuring out what helps them, and what is the just right challenge. And you can ask them and we can try it and come back and, like, it can be throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. You can also come up with a plan for, like, if this is, if the goal is like, I don't know, driving, for example, then like what's the first step? Like, is it, taking a course? Is it, what's the next step for them that makes them feel really, what will help them slowly get there? And I think sometimes we want to take that like really big step to that next place, but sometimes it like really needs to be a baby step, right? Like that step might be too big. And so we might need to cut it in half, and we might need to cut it in half again and maybe again. Like, so
Yes.
sometimes like it might be a lot smaller of a step than you think, but we want to, anytime you're moving forward, really important. And then the other tip that I think is really an important one that not all parents remember, and this is mostly for neurodivergent kids, but not even only, right? Because I
Mhm.
think when we are feeling off, when our brains, our nervous systems are a little fried, like we can't do the same things that we would do if our nervous systems were feeling like very solidly online and feeling good. And
Yes.
so this idea of performance inconsistency is important to remember, that just because your child was able to, your teen was able to, hand in their homework last week and they forgot it this week, like, doesn't, that's normal. That happens, right? And so things
Yeah.
happen. They might just like, today, I just couldn't do that thing that I did yesterday. Um, and so like getting angry at them and getting frustrated at them and reminding them that, you can remind them in like a kind way, that like, yeah, you can do it. Like you did it last time. And if it feels too hard today, let's figure out what you can do. Right. And so if like making your dinner tonight or making your lunch for tomorrow feels like it's too much, like you just make a small part of it and like I can help you if you'd like right now to do the rest,
Mhm.
if that's what you need to help
Mhm.
move through this space because you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Um,
Yes.
and so kind of helping them understand that, like, because I think there's this, I mean, we all do this, right? Like we get so mad at ourselves, like, why can't I do this now? I did this the other day. Like, what's going on? And, it's just because, we're not robots, like we're humans. And things are going to vary from day to day. And the way we show up is going to vary from day to day. And we do the best to show up as, as we can, the strongest and with the, like, that sturdiest as possible platform, that we can handle the things that are trying to throw us off balance. But sometimes we can't.
And when I'm counseling my teens, I always say, life is like this.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like this, and it is not like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have peaks and
Yes.
valleys, right? And we have to have compassion for ourselves when we're in that valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can go back up. And I think it's so important, like that is such a good message for parents to understand that that our kids are changing, and their needs are always changing as well. And so we shouldn't be shaming them if they falter. Like if
Mm-hmm.
they falter, it's okay. Like the message should be it's okay, right?
Yeah. And mistakes are learning, are places to learn. And
Yeah,
we all, I think normalizing mistakes is also really
yes,
important. Like
so
we used to it
important.
for a little bit. We tried it out for a little bit at the dinner table. It'd be like, what mistake did you make today? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
or this week? Like, what are some of the things that you wish you did differently? And so,
yeah,
just as like a nothing burger, like, just throw
yeah,
it out there because it's normal. We all do it. And if you're not
we do.
making mistakes, you're not really trying that hard,
Yeah.
Um,
And you, in order to grow, you have to take risks, and taking risks involves failure sometimes.
mhm,
I don't like to use the word failure. I like to use the word lessons. You're going to
mhm,
have lots of lessons when you're taking risks in your life,
mhm,
and that's okay, right?
mhm,
So I think, uh, yeah, we need to remember that for our kids, that they're learning, they're on that process.
mhm,
So we have to be compassionate with them. I love this. I love this. I love this. So, so good. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick recap.
mhm,
Okay. Parents, this is for you. So Jen was saying how we need to look at ourselves. Like we need to see what's happening for us when our child is misbehaving. Are we getting triggered? Are we getting more anxious, right? Because both of you being anxious is not going to be helpful, right? So you have to monitor yourself, your energy, your how you're feeling, what you're thinking, all that sort of thing. And the couple tips that Jen gave us were so good. She says, who owns the problem? Ask who owns the problem. Is it your child? Is it you? Does your child need support? Can you have the just right challenge where you work together on solving the problem? That always is so good and impactful. And then also remember that performance will have inconsistencies, especially with everybody, with every teenager. But you may see it more with a neurodivergent teenager, and that it's okay. Like
mhm,
it's okay if today's not such a good day and you're struggling a bit. That's fine. And then tomorrow you're a rock star. that's great, right?
Mm.
We have to accept our kids where they are and not put any pressure on them, because that will help them to ease through all of those different stages that they go through. Is that good, Jen?
Mhm.
Did
Yes,
I cover
yes,
most of your, you
yeah.
did go into a lot of brain
I
science,
know.
but
Sorry, I went into I can talk about this stuff like all day
like,
long.
it is really fascinating.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, and the other thing too is just remember that like those stress responses, challenging behaviors are stress responses, and
oh
the things
yes.
that help them, whatever soothes them is
Stress
the
responses.
thing, is that, whatever's going to help release oxytocin, whatever feels soothing for them is the thing that's going to counteract that stress response. And so that's really
Thank
good
you.
for
That
them to know
was
about.
such a good tip. That
For all
stress,
of
that it's a
us, all of us, we
stress
need to remember that
response.
ourselves.
Oh,
Yeah.
my child's complaining. Stress response. Oh, my
Uh-huh.
child is getting mad. Stress response.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Keep
Yeah.
reminding yourselves, parents, it's not
Yeah.
about you. It's a stress response, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so helpful. So, so
Yeah.
good. I love that. All right, Jen, tell parents where they can find you, to work with
Absolutely.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, so
go for
we
it.
if so we're at raisingorchidkids.com, just like the flower. And the reason we do that is because orchids, we call it that because it comes from a book called The Orchid and the Dandelion, where some kids are kind of like dandelions. Those are your neurotypical kids, super, they just need a little food and water. They can like grow
Yeah.
anywhere happily. Whereas, neurodivergent kids are more like orchids. They need very specific environment and supports, and they can thrive and blossom, but they just need the right specific supports. Um,
Mhm.
but we're at raisingorchidkids.com is our
Okay.
website. We have a blog that we share every other week that's free, so you can sign up for that there. We actually have an upcoming teens. We have regular support groups for parents of neurodivergent teens, and they're all virtual. So wherever you are, you can come check
Oh,
it out. And yeah, and so or if certainly email us at raisingorchidkids@gmail is also a way to reach out to us.
perfect. I will put your links on the podcast notes, parents, so you will have access to that. And I just want to thank you again, Jen, for all of your sharing. I learned a few things. I'm really grateful and I appreciate you. So thank you so much for
Thanks for
today.
having me.
All
It's
right.
really
Okay, parents, thank you so much. I love you. Take care and we will see you in the next time. Take care, everybody. Thank you, parents, for joining the show today. I hope it was valuable and that you have some useful tools to use with your children. If this show blessed you or changed you in any way, I would appreciate a review on my podcast, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, or perhaps you could even recommend our masterful parenting to your family and friends. Thank you so much, parents.